When I went to see Pink Floyd doing The Wall, they sounded amazing. Ever since then, I don't know. I've been up there. It doesn't sound that great up there, let me tell you.
What's it really like stepping into Pink Floyd and playing some of the most legendary songs ever written live in front of thousands with every note counting? For bassist Guy Pratt, Pulse captured a moment in time, a completely unedited Pink Floyd performance that still amazes him to this day. In this interview, he reveals what it was like being on that stage, how his role evolved within the band, and why some of his playing on another Floyd release was later edited, something he was surprised with, but ultimately agreed with. From navigating the expectations of playing Roger Waters' iconic parts to the unexpected realities of performing Dark Side of the Moon in full, this is a rare look inside one of Floyd's most monumental live releases. I'm Paul Stevenson from VRP Rocks, and this is Guy Pratt.
The funny thing is anything I've ever played with that's Pink Floyd related, people will just go, man, that's the best sounding thing I've ever heard gig. And it's like, and I will never know. I've just had to take people's word for it. I've never heard them. I don't know. I mean, when I went to see Pink Floyd doing The Wall, they sounded amazing. Ever since then, I don't know. I've been up there. It doesn't sound that great up there, let me tell you. And it's the same with the Sources, same with, it's funny enough, it was Jeremy Stacey, the great drummer, who, he just said to me, anything you ever see that's related to Pink Floyd is the best sounding sound you've ever heard. And I just still get kind of chilled when I listen to this. It's the thought that that's what we sounded like. I just can't. It's just extraordinary. There's no fixes on that record. That's us. That's just us. Yeah.
That's unusual for a live recording, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. They're usually kind of, nothing to do with anything. It's funny now, because it's so easy, because you don't have to make a live album now, if you know what I mean. Like, everything's being recorded anyway. It's just like, you don't have to set anything up. Everything's automatically being done. You want to make an album? Sure, let's make an album. And you take anything from any night, you can say, but so yeah, that's it. I just can't believe that's what we sounded like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that. I mean, it's probably, it's probably a waste of a choice, really, using that. So, but I think hopefully, well, maybe that can kind of we can add Bête Noire to that. So it's like two halves.
Yes,
because
there's half a choice. Yeah, four and a half.
Because Bête Noire definitely deserves to be in there.
So a bit more about Pulse then, because obviously you'd been working with the guys from Pink Floyd for a few years before this big tour as well, and you've been on tour with them a lot, and you've done an awful lot. So, how did your role within the band kind of evolve up to this kind of stage?
I don't know. I mean, I think I was only now kind of taking it as seriously as I should. I'd finally, on this, I'd finally bought precision bass, which is what you really should be playing if you're playing old Floyd stuff. I can't really, it's all a bit of a blur. It's, I can't really think. I mean, the thing is that this was at the end of the tour. This was Earl's Court. These were the last. We've been on tour for months, and I kind of never really thought then that it's. I mean, only now I'm aware of it. Like when I play shows with David, you're aware of how high the stakes are, and I find it extraordinary that, especially after having. What's interesting is going back to playing with David after having been playing with the Sourceful Secrets, where with the Sources it's like you just muck about, do whatever you want, and it's good because that's I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way, because this is sort of Pink Floyd as pop group, as a very human thing, as it was back in the days. Whereas when you go back to, whereas with David, it's every note counts. It's like you don't dick about with this. It's which is really nice, in a completely different way. And I think a lot of that is, I'm an old man now, and I guess I appreciate that in a way that I didn't back then. But I like to think that at the time of Pulse, I had the balance about right, in that it's vibier than just the Pink Floyd bass playing, but it's still kind of curating it, if you will.
I was going to ask you that, because obviously Pink Floyd all the music that came before, incredible back catalogue they had, and Roger Waters is very iconic as well. So when you step in to play that music, and obviously no two people play exactly the same, so you're obviously going to bring your own tone to it. So were you kind of told to stick to what Roger had done, or were
No,
you given the
no,
license to
not
kind of move it slightly into your style?
not at all. And on the, I mean, like on that first tour, this on the on Delicate Sound of Thunder. No, I mean, it's shocking some of the stuff I've done. I'm not surprised. David went back when they remastered it. David edited some of my stuff out, which I used to be horrified at. But it's like, well, yeah, actually, thanks. Um, and but then it's all you got to remember. This is in the days. This was before tribute bands. This was before it was everything. This was the '80s, and it's like we were in our time. You've got to be in your time, haven't you? So I think one should be forgiven a bit for that. Because early '90s was a funny time. Is it? It's the Division Bell got knocked off #1 by Parklife. This is the birth of Britpop
Britpop, yeah.
and all that. And we're coming out of that weird fallow period. They'd been what swayed, and things like Massive Attack had just happened. There was a lot. Electronica was a big thing, and Floyd were very cool amongst the younger crowd, which they hadn't been before. So there was. So it was interesting. So I think like stylistically, some of the stuff I was doing was still kind of caught between two camps, which is things like Any Color You Like off Dark Side of the Moon is kind of, I know it's like do a bit of slapping in that. And you're thinking, actually, in '94, weren't really doing that anymore. It was kind of falling off. Actually, that's one point I would like to make. It's interesting about that is that what we would alternate. Second half, some nights would just be a sort of greatest hits thing with most of Dark Side of the Moon. You'd play most of Dark Side of the Moon. And then other nights we would play Dark Side of the Moon, right, as a piece. And what's interesting is even though we were playing most of the songs, when you play Dark Side of the Moon as a piece, you play those songs differently. And I can't tell you what or how or why, but you do. I noticed for instance, in I want because there's two versions like us and I mean they might have been both from Dark Side of the Moons or not from Dark Side of the Moons, but on the record and the video of Pulse, us and them is two completely different tempos.
Okay.
One's much faster than the other, and I'm wondering, and I wonder if one of that's because one of them's from a Dark Side of the Moon and one of them isn't. I've got a feeling that a slower one would be from a performance of Dark Side of the Moon, because so it's just interesting.